Hello, I'm Cynthia, and this is Circle of Love. And today we are going to make a luminous lotus. And I'm gonna show you what that means, what that looks like, and what that means. But that'll give us a chance to focus on different areas of our lives that we want to see grow. Okay, lotuses have a lot of symbolism. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you about the symbolism, and then I'll show you the supplies that we're gonna use today. So actually, lotuses, you may already know, live in muddy conditions. And so so when they at nighttime, when they're kind of going to sleep, they close all of their petals and they submerge in under this mud. In the morning, every morning, they then come back up, they rise through the mud, and it's almost like they awaken. So they open their petals one by one, and they fully open when they are finally out of the mud. And so that concept is a really cool metaphor for life and for resiliency, that no matter what difficulties or challenges we're facing, which would be the mud in this scenario, and that we're kind of feeling like we're in, that we can, using a few strategies, come out of that and open up and blossom. Okay. All right. Now let me show you the supplies we're going to use today. I'm going to flash over to my work surface. I actually have a couple of different sheets of paper because I don't know if I specified heavy paper or like cardstock paper in our supply list. So this is heavy or cardstock paper, but I do also have just regular old copy paper, which is really thin, and it will also work for our activity today. Don't worry, okay? I also have a pencil. I have some colored pencils. I have some scissors. And I also have a tracing device. So you can use here a tuna can. That's actually the right size that we're going to need. I also have a peanut butter lid. That's the right size. I also have a roll of tape that is the right size. And I have a mug, bottom of a mug that is the right size. Okay, so find yourself one of those if you have them, and if not, don't worry, we can freehand that circle with our regular pencil. Okay, here is a sneak peek, if you haven't seen yet, of our finished product. And as you can see on the outside, I've identified different areas that I am interested in giving attention to throughout this next year. And on the inside, I kind of give some detail about exactly how that will look in my life. In other words, what actions do I need to take? Okay. All right. And so I'm going to go over that again more later, but let's get started building our lotus. Oh, I did also provide a template file, but right now I'm just going to go through the process of creating the lotus in case there is someone that doesn't have that template. So I'm just going to take my circle and I'm placing it right in the middle of my paper as best as you can, and go ahead and trace that circle all the way around. Okay. Once you've traced the circle, you're going to use, as you can see here, some pretty kind of, I'm going to call wide petals. And I like the shape of these petals. They're modeled after real lotus petals, where they start more narrow here at the base. They get a little bit wider, so they curve around like that. And then they come to a tip or a point at the end. Okay, so I'm going to be working on that shape, and I'm just going to go around and add all my petals. And it's okay if they're not exactly the same. We don't need it to be any particular way. And I'm going ahead and just going around, and it helps to turn your paper sometimes just to get a better angle. Okay, if you do have that template and you've printed it, you may begin cutting, and I'm going to just make sure and give you some tips as you're cutting when I start cutting mine here. Okay. Now, notice I have overlapped a tiny bit right here as I created my two petals next to each other. What we actually don't want an overlap. So as you're drawing, make sure that you're drawing side by side and not overlapping. So I'm just erasing and I'm correcting there. just like this, okay? All right, so here's what I have. It could look to some people like a sunflower, but it is a lotus to me. And you can see how my petals aren't perfectly symmetrical. That's okay. You do not need them perfectly symmetrical. However, here I see this one is at a little bit of an angle. And since I have time and since I have an eraser, I am going to adjust it just a little bit and make it come more. There we go. There we go. Straight out like this from the center. Okay. It's time to begin cutting. And now, as you're cutting, it's going to be important to cut in a way that you come all the way to that circle edge right there, okay, with each cut, all the way to the circle edge. If I turn it sideways, you can see better like that. And sometimes I come out like this to the edge and cut inward. It's just easier to access sometimes, okay? Take your time and go ahead. And here you can see that each petal, in fact, goes all the way to the edge of that circle, okay? I'm gonna keep going, getting those cut out. And as we're doing this, it's time to start thinking about what are some of those areas of your life that you're wanting to get more focus to, that you're wanting to see grow and develop and blossom. Really, ultimately, the entire lotus will represent you or your life, okay? And then petals will represent each of the different parts of you or different areas of your life. Okay, I'm just continuing with my cutting. And if your cuts are jagged, that's okay. Don't worry about that. Some of my cuts are coming out jagged. I think because of my scissors, they might not be as sharp as they could be. That's okay. That part is not important. Okay, I'm just continuing around cutting the petals. Now, if you're someone who's working instead in a like in a journal or in an art book, because you like to collect your work in your book, then I will show you later how you can attach this to your book in a really easy way that'll also give you a really cool effect. And if you and the reason that we are taking the time to cut this out is because it will be double-sided. There will be some areas that we need to label in a more general way, and then some areas that will be where we will add more information, okay? All right, here's what I have. Now, if you're someone who's joining me live right now and you're still working on tracing or you're still working on cutting, keep going, don't worry. Okay, you're just kind of glancing at what I'm doing now, and you're gonna just know what the next step is. So when you're ready, you can get there. The next step is going to be to bring each each petal in and fold it gently inward towards the center, just like that, okay? Towards the center, towards the center, keep going towards the center. So once I have my lotus all folded up, it looks like this. Okay? And then when I go to open it, it goes like this. Okay, now there are some areas or some categories that I'm going to give you as options to consider during the labeling of your lotus, during this thought process or this journey, areas of life that you could consider in order to help build resilience. So what I've done is I've actually pulled out a document that I love to use sometimes. It is from the Green Cross Academy of Traumatology. And what it is a area or a list or a chart, I should say, of the different areas of ourselves or our lives that it all come together to form our resilience to life. In other words, our strength or our ability to cope, often our ability to flourish or to blossom. Okay, you can see here that this chart is listing the categories of cognitive, which is kind of like mental, having to do with the mind, emotional, behavioral, spiritual, physical, and interpersonal categories. And within each category, it gives a list of specific things or examples of what those activities would look like. Okay. For example, under cognitive, we see things like, for example, writing things down. Okay. If you feel like there are parts of your mind, maybe even your memory, that you might like to try to strengthen, here are some examples of some activities that can help with that. Let me see if I can come a little closer here and hold it more still. Okay, and so some things like that would be giving yourself permission to ask for help even. Okay, getting the most information you can to help you make decisions, anticipating needs, remembering you do have options. Okay, reviewing previous successes with what has worked in the past, problem solve, break large tasks into smaller ones. Here it lists bass fishing because I think they also like to interject an element of humor. And sometimes this particular information is shared with other groups of people in trainings. And so to get buy-in from male participants, they include specific things like that. And then practice. Often we get frustrated when things don't go as well as we had hoped, but sometimes we need to remember that that's just because it takes practice. It's something that's going to take practice. At the top of the list is also moderation, okay, and making small daily decisions, okay. Also see the decisions you are already making. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the rest of the categories to give you more ideas, but notice that there are 6 different sections here. Okay, let's look at our lotus and see how many petals our lotus has. And my lotus has 6 different petals. Your lotus may have a different number, and that's okay. Okay, but what I'm going to do for myself in order to just give like a general balanced, even, let's see, effort towards general resilience is I'm going to label each of my petals with each of these different categories. So on the first one, I'm going to put cognitive. And right now I'm just doing that with my pencil. Cognitive, dealing with the mind. On the next one, I'm going to put emotional. On the next one, I'm going to write behavioral. Now, if you're feeling like some of these words just don't seem to fit with you or doesn't sound right to you, don't worry, you can change those words. You can use other words, you can use other categories, okay? Whatever seems right to you. This is supposed to be a project that is beneficial to you and your specific needs, okay? Okay, the next category that I'm going to borrow from here is spiritual. The next category I'm going to borrow is physical. And the next category I'm going to borrow is interpersonal. That's a long one. Once again, the idea here is that to have well-rounded resilience, or to be, to feel strength in being able to move forward in life, that these are 6 categories that have been identified by researchers and by health professionals to be the almost standard of the areas that we need to give attention to and that we need to strengthen in order to be our best. Okay. If you disagree with these, that is not a problem. You, and again, like I said before, insert your own categories. Okay. All right. I can tell you that just by looking at these categories briefly right now, there are going to be 2 that really stand out to me strongly. And there are others that I feel like maybe I'm already doing a great job at. Maybe I already have some strengths in. There are 2, maybe even 3 that I really feel like I need to give extra attention to. Okay, so I'll reveal more about that as I go. So the next task, after we've labeled our categories and just thought about all the different parts of our lives, because it's really useful and helpful and important to always kind of keep looking at, surveying the whole picture, the big picture, looking at the big picture. Okay. I'm going to go in now with each of these categories, and I'm going to identify on the inside of the petal what specific actions, what specific thoughts, what specific behaviors, okay, do I need to focus on there? What would I like to add that maybe isn't there yet? So if I borrow the behavioral category and I go over to the behavioral chart, and this is where I'm going to go through them with more detail. So if you want to just kind of be listening for something that stands out to you and you want to borrow it, fantastic. If something else pops into your mind and you say to yourself, or you think to yourself, or you feel that that's more relevant to you and useful to you and specific to you, please write that down, whatever comes to your mind. Okay, so I'm in the behavioral category right now. And some examples to build behavioral resilience include moderation, remembering moderation, not too much of anything or even really too little, but just the right amount. Spend time by yourself. Spend time with others. Limit demands on time and energy. That could mean that maybe there's someone who is seeming to try to take up all of your time or your energy. Or it could be there's a project that's taking up most of your time and energy. Okay, so it means reevaluating that and going back to the idea of moderation. Okay, help others with tasks. This could be an option if maybe you are not already doing some of that in your life. But if for those who may already be doing a lot of that in their lives, maybe that's something that wouldn't necessarily be as relevant. Give yourself permission to ask for help. I believe we've seen that one in another category. That's a popular one. It's a really popular one. Do activities that you previously enjoyed. Okay, so maybe looking back at, what did I used to like a long time ago? Did I forget about things that brought me joy? Take different routes to work or on trips. Yeah, we kind of sometimes get stuck in our habits, in our routines, and we just do it the same way all the time. It's almost like being intentional about mixing it up. Okay, remember that you have options. Sometimes we might think, well, what in the world are my options though? Okay, but you do have options. It could take a little creativity to see what the different options could be. Find new activities that are enjoyable and mildly challenging. Okay. Set goals and have a plan. Relax. Oh, there again, I think we're going to be seeing lots of fishing references here in these. Okay. Crappie fishing, for example. Not that males are the only fishers in the world, but this, I think, was specifically designed to try to include and entice those who may otherwise not be interested in this material. And lastly, practice, practice, practice. And we've seen that before. Okay, again, sometimes we want things to turn out exactly right the first time, but we forget it takes practice. Okay, out of this list, I can tell you right now, immediately, what is relevant to me is give yourself permission to ask for help. That can be a really hard thing for some people to do, and that's a really hard thing for me to do sometimes. And that's a kind of a hot topic. So I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to, well, I am going to leave it with the word yourself. For a moment, I thought I might put myself, but I like the idea that this lotus is talking to me. So I'm going to say, give yourself permission to ask for help. Okay. And now I have a specific action I can take to work on this category of resilience in my life. Okay. So again, I'm going to move on to the next petal, but if you feel like you need more time or you feel like you're still thinking or working on other steps, don't worry, you keep going. Okay. All right, I'm going to move to emotional, and let's take a look at what this chart is listing here for emotional. All right, we have moderation. Once again, I believe we're going to see that on all the categories. Allow yourself to experience what you feel. That can be a hard one sometimes if those feelings are very difficult or challenging feelings. But we must remember that if we're having strong feelings about something, that we can honor those feelings, and instead of trying to push away or change or ignore the feelings, we can honor them. Label what you are experiencing. Give yourself permission to ask for help. Once again, be assertive when necessary. Keep communication open with others. Remember, you have options. Use your sense of humor. Have a buddy with whom you can vent. And use positive words and language. And here it means really intentionally, where maybe there are usually negative words associated with a particular topic, or maybe in the emotional sense, there are often negative words that come up. Walleye fishing, this is a different type of fishing apparently. I think we're going to learn a lot about that today in today's activity. And lastly, practice, practice, practice. So here, think about again, anything that really stands out to you, that feels relevant to you, or that might be something that you kind of haven't tried before, that maybe you could try new. I am going to add on mine what I feel is relevant to me is allow yourself to experience what you feel. Because I often get in the mode of just accomplishing a mission, and there are other things that I'm feeling, or my body is telling me something else that it needs, and I might ignore it sometimes, just for the sake of accomplishing my mission. So I really need to pay attention to what I'm really experiencing or feeling. Allow yourself to experience what you feel. But I also like the idea that if I'm having difficult feelings, that, I'd like to be better about honoring them rather than just trying to change them as quickly as possible. Okay. All right, that was the emotional category. I'm going over to cognitive now on mine. Okay. I also want to mention as I go that I'm writing mine in pencil, like this regular pencil. You might prefer, if you want to, try to write yours in colored pencil. What I'm going to be planning on doing on mine is going over my regular pencil with my colored pencil. Okay, but you can do whatever you like, whatever is best for you. Cognitive. All right, we did go over the cognitive list, but I'm going to go ahead and review it anyway. Okay, let's see if I can get my paper lined up here properly. Cognitive. Once again, we see moderation. write things down. I know there was a time in my life, well, actually, I would say it's still going, but there's always so many things, either activities that I'm involved in or dates or information I have to try to remember, or all kinds of things. And I used to just try to just remember it in my mind. Now I really need to write things down. But also, there are also thoughts that I write down sometimes. So writing things down is a really great practice, especially in order to come back and review what your mental journey has been. Make small daily decisions, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. See the decisions you are already making. Once again, this is an empowerment strategy if you are feeling overwhelmed. Give yourself permission to ask for help. Plan for the future. Get the most information you can to help make decisions. This is one that could be relevant to people who feel like you should already know everything, that you should already be able to just make the decision, that it should be easier to do. Okay, but if it's feeling really difficult to make decisions, there are steps to take before the actual decision, and that would be to gather information. Anticipate needs. Think about what you might need ahead of time. Remember, you have options. Review previous successes. So again, what has worked in the past? Don't forget that sometimes we've already learned important lessons, and sometimes we forget them. Problem solve. Have a backup plan or plan B. Having a plan B might seem obvious, might seem like common sense, but I find myself not having a plan B very often. And the times that I have gone ahead and approached an issue with both a plan A and a plan B, when plan A doesn't work, it just feels so much easier to know what I'm going to do because I have already made that plan B. Break large tasks into smaller ones. And we have already heard about bass fishing. That one I did know. And practice, practice, practice. Okay. And so for myself, I feel that what's relevant to me is get the most information you can to help you make decisions. I've found that to be really helpful, and it eliminates so much of the struggle for me when I can instead, take actionable steps to inform myself in order to make that decision-making process so much easier. So let's see here, get the most information you can to help make decisions. I really need that. Okay, all right, that was cognitive. I'm moving on to interpersonal. And by the way, I will send out, when I send the recording of this activity out, I will also send a copy of this chart for anyone who's interested. Okay, interpersonal, let's see here. All right, here is the interpersonal category. We begin with moderation and give yourself permission to ask for help. We're seeing that, right, in a lot of these categories. So those things are very important no matter what. Take time to enjoy time with a trusted friend or partner. Hugs. Okay, maybe you have people around that you can possibly practice giving hugs to, or intentionally set out to give hugs. Practice healthy boundaries too. So in a relationship, the interpersonal can be related to other people, your relations with other people. So healthy boundaries, are going to be important when there is an imbalance, especially there's an imbalance somehow. Maybe, you are the one feeling that you want more time with another person. Maybe you already are having a lot of time with another person. And so reevaluate, is that a balanced amount of time? Or maybe it's vice versa. The other person feels like it's to you feels like they're really sucking all of your time. Okay, again, reevaluate that. Healthy boundaries. But time doesn't have to be the only factor. There can be other ways and reasons that we need to set boundaries. Remember to use I statements. So, especially when communicating with others, especially in a, see here, difficult conversation, using a statement that starts with I keeps it centered on your experience. When we start statements with you, it can come off as very accusatory and then lead to further arguments. So here, that's what they mean. Use humor to diffuse tense conversations. Play together. Talk with a trusted partner or friend. Apologize when stress causes irritable behavior or outbursts. State needs and wants as clearly as possible. Oh, look at that. Fish together. Any kind of fishing, it says. And practice, practice, practice. Okay. And of all of these, I will have to say, let's see here, that's what's relevant to me if I'm thinking about relationships with others. I think it's the part about stating needs and wants as clearly as possible. That's feeling really relevant to me. State needs and as clearly as possible. You know, sometimes I expect others to read my mind or expect that others are going to be wanting the same thing that I want. And so in order to avoid confusion or disappointment, we can be more clear about that. Okay, physical, category of physical. Let's see here. Moderation, aerobic exercise. Oh, you might see there are some of these that are already circled on my document here, and that's probably because I've looked at this before. See the doctor and dentist, and this might be something, again, that might be common sense. However, we can easily forget to do these things or think we don't need these things, okay? Routine sleep patterns. I know sometimes when I am in a crunch and I have a project due, I just kind of forget about my schedule, my normal regular daily schedule, and I just am up at all hours trying to get this done. So I really need to focus on that. Minimize caffeine and alcohol and sugar. Give yourself permission to ask for help. Eat well-balanced regular meals. Drink water. That can be a very simple and a very, very effective strategy. Drink water, drink more water. Wear comfortable clothes for people who are feeling like, you need to look a certain way. Focus on comfort, making yourself comfortable first. Engage in physical luxuries like a spa or massage or a bath or an exercise trainer. Remember to breathe and breathe deeply. Mindful breaths. Take mini breaks. Ooh, I think that might be mine. Oh, catfish fishing. And practice, practice, practice. So I am going to say take many breaks for myself. That is definitely relevant to what I need. I originally had intended to write aerobic exercise, which I also desperately need, but I feel like the aerobic exercise right now is, it just kind of feels overwhelming to me right now. But when I see take mini breaks, that's an action I can take right away. I can do that. I can definitely do that. Again, look for the things that you feel you can do. You do need more of, and yes, you will be able to do it. Spiritual. I'm on my last pedal. And so here I'm going to cover the last category I haven't yet. It's called spiritual, and it says moderation. Discuss changed beliefs with spiritual leader. This here could also include maybe with friends or with family. If you have someone that you like to have these conversations with. Meditation. Give yourself permission to ask for help. Practice rituals of faith or beliefs. Spiritual retreats or workshops. Some people enjoy prayer or practice prayer. Remember that you have options. Mindfulness. Find spiritual support. Read spiritual literature. There's also trout fishing and practice, practice, practice. Okay. And so here I think I'm going to choose for myself. I've been really feeling like the need for some practice of rituals of faith or beliefs. You know, I tend to be someone who focuses on those things only during certain times of year, but it's something that I really want to build into my life more regularly. So practice rituals of faith / beliefs. And here is also something that you can create that is your own. It doesn't have to be a religious, say, group or faith that is already existing. This could simply mean, taking your own beliefs and ideas and making something or choosing something that in your life that is related to that you spend time with on a regular basis. So this, be creative with all of these. You can see here I have now on the outside written these general categories, and on the inside I have actionable steps, actual things I can do to build on these categories, and some of them really important, really urgent in my life, actually. And so in the center, you can choose a word that you think identifies or personifies how you think you would feel if you were accomplishing all of these things. Or by accomplishing all of these things, what does that mean to you in your life? Okay. For example, if I imagine myself practicing all of these things, I feel balance. Okay. We know also that by addressing all of these different categories in our lives and practicing all of these different things, we also can achieve resilience. I'm going to add that just because you can do more than one word. Okay, I've got balance, I've got resilience. It also makes me feel organized. And I'm going to write order up here at the top for myself. Okay. You're welcome to borrow any of my words or come up with your own. And now the time is to decorate. So I'm going to show you a very, very simple way to add some color here just on the edges of your petals. Okay, that allow, and I'm going to move this out of the way. There we go. There we go. That allow your petals to really stand out, but also allows your words to be seen or be able to be read. And so for now, I'm still not sure if I'm going to go through and trace over my words with anything. I really don't know yet. But I do know that I'm going to be adding color to these petals. Okay, so all I'm doing, it doesn't take much. And if you're using colored pencils, this is a really, really easy process. I'm pressing really hard here at the very edge of the petal as I'm coloring it. And as I move in towards the center of the petal where the word is, I just lighten up my pressure. There we go. So I get this shaded, faded kind of effect. You see how it just lets that petal pop like that? And I'm going to go through now. You could make petals all different colors. You know, I might do that if I was to make another one of these. I had the idea of making a whole bunch of different ones because there really are so many different things that I could be working on always, and then putting them together in a group. Like if it was a entire, say, pond of lotus flowers, that might be fun. And now that you've seen the process, you can probably also imagine other ways or other categories or other ways you could organize your lotus topics. Just continuing here, again, pressing really hard against the edge. And then as I move inward more lightly, so I get that faded effect, okay? Once you finish, oh, you can also add color to the inside. You can see here on my example, I have color on the inside as well, okay? And that way that color stands out when you set it back up. To set it back up, you're simply gonna lay it like that, flat on its back. If you want to add this to your journal or to your art book, just put glue here on the underside and glue it onto your page. And it will still allow you to be able to fold all your petals down. You kind of have to remember what order they go. There we go. Fold them all down and have it flat, and then close your book. So you see that it can work that way as well. Okay. And lastly, if you happen to have a little tea light candle, you can also add that as a nice touch when you have your lotus set up. The idea is that this should act as a reminder of the tasks that you're working on, and the light being the reminder that this is something to focus on, right? But also the lotus being the reminder that this is something that will help you blossom, right? And bring you strength in your life. I am going to flash back over to my face for those of you who are joining me by recording. I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope that you get a chance to complete this project and that it's helpful and useful to you in your life. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for Circle of Love, and I hope to see you next time.